Hi everyone. Today's lecture we will talk about the network security, specifically types of attack. During our lecture we will talk about some types of attack and we will talk about also denial of service and how we can prevent our system from that type of attack. Before of that, we need to know what the attack it will mean. The attack, it means that it gain access to the system by an authorized person. That unauthorized person will do something to our system, either by access to the data, modify and destroy our data. What we mean by this, he is not authorized to do what he are doing right now. He will go inside our data to look inside it, to let himself know about it, and do some modification by changing some numbers, changing some destinations, or changing what inside our data. Or they will destroy our data and forbidden us from use it in for the specific reason that it's created it for. In that things, there is a different way to conduct our attack. One of them come by their nature, noise, or we can see it in many different things. So our job is to look for it, to be able to detect what we are need to do with the attacker and what he do. So the main objective of the attack, or we can name it also the crown jewel of the attack, is to compromise the system by discovering some weak point inside that our system. This weak point come by exploiting some business logic in our application, or by exploiting some bugs in our application, or by passing false code or false things to forbidden us from use what we are need to use for it. From that point, we can classify our attack to two things: the passive attack and the active attack. For the passive attack, there will be no modification for the data, or no modification for anything will happen. Now, how we can classify this as attack if there is no modification? If we come to this small example, when two users try to communicate with each other by using some internet connection or any other things, the attacker, when will appear, is the main goal of it to obtain some information that is sent from one point to another by listening to what will be inside to the message that will send from Bob to Alice, or make some analysis for the traffic. He will use that traffic analysis to make some forbidden or keep the channels or the panel between them busy as much as he can, or do some harmful things that he planned to do it in the future. And we already have some examples about this, which is come from our normal life, like telephone conversation, electronic mail messages, and transfer data from one point to the other. On the active attack, here the modification will appear. What we mean by this? When we return back to our friend Bob and Alice, and when they try to communicate with each other, when the attacker appear here, the main goal of it is to involve some modification for the data that sent from one point to another, by capture that data, do what he need to do inside the data by changing some information, inject some false code inside it, or what he need to do something harmful for it, and send it to the destination that supposed to deliver to it, which is Alice in our example. It can be categorized into three types, which is reply, denial of service, and modification of messages. In our lecture, we will focus on the denial of service, and we will talk a little about it in the coming slides. So if we create or make some tables to make some comparison between them, we can see in the active attack, there will be some change in an hour, and the change and modification for the data will be occur, while in the passive attack, there is no change or modification. And also in the active attack, it will always cause a damage because it is harmful, but in the passive attack, there is no damage because it's not harmful. And there is also some capture by the physical control, which is the attacker, while in the passive attack, he just listen. And in the emphasis term, we can detect the active attack, but our job is to prevent the passive attack from occurring inside what we are looking. From that point, the active attack present an opposite characteristic for the passive attack. It means the passive attack are difficult to detect because we cannot easily figure who are listening to us, while the active attack is difficult to prevent because it causes some harmful, and we need some firewalls and many other tools to prevent our system from all that kinds of attacks. So the main goal is to detect the active attack and recover from it and from any disruption caused and by that types of attack. In the term of the denial of the service, what we mean by it? We mean by it, we can, the denial of service come in terms of preventing or inhibit the normal user from use or manage the communication facilities between some point and the other. It take many specific actions, and there is many examples between them. When the normal user try to communicate with the server, for example, to need some request to process something or do something, when the attacker happen, he will try to disturb the entire network and cause some degraded to the performance of it and forbidden the normal user from reach destination, which is in our example, the server. There is two examples in our lecture. We will talk about it in details. One of them, we can name it synchronized float, and the other one, we can name it UDP float. For the synchronized float, what we mean by it, the attacker send a session of the synchronized request to the target, which is the server in our example, and keep that part busy as much as he can. But how the synchronize happen in the normal user, we need to know how that protocol or how that technique will work before we know how the problem will cause by that. There is something very important named three-way handshake work happen when the normal user tries to communicate with the server. In our example, he will send a synchronized request to connect with that server, and he will wait to receive some acknowledgement from that server. If he's idle and good to work with that user, he will send the acknowledgement to that user and tell him he's ready to receive any request from him to process it. And after that, the normal user will send and response with the acknowledgement to open and establish connection between the server and do what he needs to do and work on it. The attacker goal here is to make that server busy as much as he can. How he will do this? When the attacker appears, he will flood the system with a lot of synchronized requests. It means the server will receive a lot of synchronized from many different positions, many different IPs in our example here, and the server will respond to that request by sending some acknowledgement because he thought he's normal user, but the attacker will not respond. We name this half open state. And when the normal user try to communicate with that server, he will not be able because the server is still waiting and waiting to receive a synchronized response from that user, which is already response to it, but he will receive nothing. And after a while, when the normal user come to communicate with that server by sending some synchronized request to that server, he will not receive nothing from that server because the server is waiting and waiting for the synchronized request come from that attacker and kept busy as much as he can by the attacker. So the main objective of the synchronized float is simply fill up the slot of the server with a lot of requests and keep the server as much as he can in the term of half open connection. If we think there is solution for this, of course there is many solutions. One of them may be come by increasing the number of the slots to go over the problem of the half open connection. One of them also by reducing the time waiting to receive some synchronized request from that person which is already received, but each one maybe will cost something. One of them maybe will cost some money because we need to increase or improve our hardware. One of them will play or adjust something inside our server to do play with the time inside the server, and each one consider as a good solution for a specific things. In another word, there is no ideal solution for things, but there is also a solution for every case come with the different things and many things. Here is an example. We can see the synchronized come from, for example, that IP. For this one, send it to the IP of the server, and there is also come from different IP as we see here, which is already sent to the same IP of the server. And also we can see the response by sending some synchronized acknowledgement, which is come from the server to the source, which is already received the request from it. Now, regarding the UDP float, it comes in terms of the user datagram protocol, which is come by flooding the panel or the connection between the user and the server with a lot of requests, and keep the server also busy as much as they can. How it will happen? It come by sending a large amount of spoofed requests, which is fake requests, not real requests. This request not necessarily come from different IPs. It will be sufficient come from one IP, because he will send a lot of pings to come from one IP to one IP of the server. This will keep and waste the CPU cycle time, and also keep the server busy as much as they can by flooding the pipe between the normal user and the server with a lot of requests and a large volume of the UDP messages. How the UDP flood attack it will work? It come primarily by exploiting the steps that a server take when it responds to a UDP packet sent to one of its ports. We will see here an example when the attacker tries to communicate with the server. He will send a lot of spoofed UDP package to the server, and the server will do two things. The first thing, he will check to see if there is any program can running and response to the spoofed IP or the request come from that IP to process. And after a while, he will figure out there is no program can do this because it's a fake, not real one. And he will respond to the server with the ICMP ping packet, which is Internet Control Message Protocol, which is mean by there is some error reporting to the protocol of the network that come from that part. By this way, the attacker flowed the panel between the normal user and the server with a lot of requests of the UDP and keep it busy as much as he can. When the normal user come and try to communicate with the server, he will not be able because the server is busy and flooded with a lot of requests come from that person, which is already. As we see here is an example. We must keep in our mind it is considered easier to spoof an address, even if it come because there is no verification of the source address in our operating system level, and it will be there is if our network it will not be arranged very well, it will not be protected very well. And as we see here, all of the requests come from same IP address, send it to the same IP address of the server, because the main job of the UDP float is to flood the panel between the user and the server with a lot of UDP requests, as I mentioned, and keep the server busy as much as he can. If we put some comparison between the synchronized float capture and the UDP float capture, we will see it come from different IP address in the synchronized float, but all of them come from one source, which is in the UDP float capture. To this point, we will end our lecture. I hope everyone enjoyed the information that we already explained in this lecture, and I will be very happy to respond to any request or any question. If you have, you can use my email and send me any questions. Thank you very much, and thanks for your listening and attention.